How's it going? Hope you're doing well. I'm doing well. Taping this after a very wonderful podcast that I was just on that was 3 hours long. But you'll find out about that later in the coming weeks. Keep an eye out for When Songs Mean Business with Steph Belcher. Anyway, I'm Dutcher Snedeker, and I'm here for the last time on the Dutcher Snedeker Podcast. Last time for now. We'll leave the door open. But again, if you want to support me going forward, patreon.com/Dutcher Snedeker, DutcherSnedeker.com for everything else. But let's savor this last moment we have together for this podcast. So we're here, the penultimate episode of the Dutcher Snedeker Podcast. A nice round number too, episode 50. And what a journey it's been. When I started taping this podcast, I think it was either last December or early January. It might have been last December because I was taping stuff early thinking I would, do a batch of podcasting. And what it turned into was, not wanting to work over the holiday. So I had stuff recorded, some stuff out. And I didn't really know what I wanted this podcast to be. It's an interesting thing to make something in a room like this where it's just me. And I think part of my brain wanted me to get used to that because that's what a lot of stuff is me working behind the scenes and not all the time sharing that with people. It's also kind of a weird video diary, like a vlog of sorts, because I do talk about my life in this podcast. And it's going to be an interesting snapshot because it's a snapshot that's a year after a pandemic. It's the second year of a pandemic, and it's think of all that's happened in this year. Like I can hear when I started this podcast at the top of the year, unemployment had run out for me. I couldn't be on it anymore based on the stipulations of whatever. I was going into a month of some recording work. I had just paid $700 to the IRS because they're stupid, and I hate them. And that's knowing that I know 3 senior enforcers for the IRS, so I still hate you. Like, why? Why around Christmas, too? It was like the week after I was off unemployment, they're like, by the way, you still owe us $700. And I should have disputed it because I don't think I had to pay it. Because I had another instance where they sent a bunch of letters and they were like, you got paid $800 a week. You extorted the whatever. And I'm like, I clearly didn't. Like, you can look at my bank statements. You can look at whatever you need to make yourself feel better. But I did not get paid that much. Believe me, if I had gotten paid, $800 a week, I wouldn't have any more debt. I would have been living so chill and just spending all the excess on my debt, like full stop. But yeah, this podcast started in kind of a weird, uncertain time. And then the following month, I had some gigs through GR Noir because that was their opening week and opening month. And then that was also when restaurants and event spaces could have quarter capacity. So you started to see things trickle. Like I got a residency for the first time that wasn't booked through somebody else. It was under my name, and I could delegate who I wanted to bring in. And I got to spend 4 months making and playing music with the crew in normal mode and and Madison George and John Muir Cotton. Like, that was huge just to like have regular work again, but also something that was like, I didn't expect to come out of a pandemic, a residency. Like, I was expecting like weird gigs here and there, but it was just a nice reminder of like where I'm at in my career and what I should, shoot for, in my brain, when you still have the 20 in your age, you think that it's like, oh, I'm still in college. There's that part of you that wants to escape back into music school. Well, all that was required of you was to, figure out earning a living while you were also, just shedding every day or every other day or multiple days in a week, however much, but to think that music came back in such a way over the year, I had so much more to talk about. I was like kind of uncertain. Like, I knew with this podcast I was going to talk about myself. I was going to talk about my life. I was going to open up and share things. I wanted to express different sides of me. I had episodes where I was really frustrated. I had episodes where I was just goofy and loopy the whole time. I had episodes that were music heavy. I had episodes that were kind of brainstorming, commentary style content. It took me out of my comfort zone. Like now I'm like I've always been a person who can like I can if you get me in a conversation, I can keep it going. If I really want to, I can keep it going. And this podcast is a testament to that, because there's nobody in here. Like, there's people in the other room working in the control room, but they're not in this office with me. I don't have an audience other than you, the listener, or the viewer. So that was a whole new experience with any of my podcasts, just having an audience that wasn't immediately there. Like, I'm so used to, with performing, it's like, you might be at a bar venue and like, oh, they're done with dinner, or, they came in late from work, they caught the last half of our set, or, it's in flux, but there's always some level of people there. And then sometimes I play to an empty room because nobody promoted, nobody showed up, or it was a gig in a blizzard and like 2 people showed up that weren't staff. So to have, a year that I was, I played a festival again, like that's huge. Like that whole scene, I was able to like plan work. And my computer just beeped, so that's why I was like, huh? My my confidence in how to do some of this stuff increased, which happens naturally when you're doing this kind of work. But it just kind of let me be a little bit, I don't know, not necessarily unrestrained, because I try to live fairly transparent. But just getting to kind of explore the stream of consciousness of my brain, because if someone were to be around me all day, I feel like there'd be a point where to be like, all right, enough, because there's times where I'm in the car and I'm just like, I'm running hypotheticals for stuff coming up, or I'm running content I want to make. I'm brainstorming how to talk about it, or I'm singing along with a song to learn a part or something. Like I'm just my brain is very active, and that's also where, when I am very transparent about my work-life balance being always in need of adjustment, it's because I have an active brain. It's hard for me to like go to sleep because I'm like, no, I want to learn about, oh, I just found this video and it's about how ketchup's made and this dude's, goofing on it. And I watch it because it's like 6 minutes, but then that leads to another thing. And then suddenly it's 2 a.m. or suddenly I'm waking up to accidentally putting my YouTube thing on autoplay and there's been 4 videos or something. It's a reminder that I need to reciprocate this activity with rest and care. So that's been another healing part of this podcast, is to, there's times where I've really like opened up and let myself be vulnerable, not knowing who even is going to receive it on the other end, or in some cases knowing who's going to receive it on the other end. And just trying to be that person that, I'm striving to be more of in real life. And, as an artist, there's few people that get what you are as an artist, who you are as a person, as a creative. And not saying that I'm like a deep wellspring of like, like, if only people knew my art, I would succeed. It's like, I'm not just the piano man, playing piano. Like, I do other things. It's what I'm known for, is playing piano, but I have other interests and things I want to develop and do. And that's part of why this podcast came together too. It's what happens if I get a sandbox, and the sandbox only has two toys. It's me and a piano. Like, oh, I could play chords. I don't want the whole podcast to just be like, hey, listen to me play piano, because I want it to be different from a concert. I could just do that forever. I could just do that forever. But, I went way too close. I'm still close. I hear how loud I am. That's why there's compression, so you can even stuff out. This podcast, it's the first thing also, other than things that I knew had natural conclusions, like, I graduated high school, I graduated undergrad, I graduated master's. Like, this is the first time where I've had to end something that I've made. Not me stepping back from participating in someone else's thing, not something canceled, not something postponed, not something worked on and then disappeared. This is me saying, you know what? I have to end this podcast here. And what does that mean for the future? 2022, it's not starting off amazing, with a canceled musical. Which it's up in the air if it can even happen in 2022. It probably will go on to 2023. And that's indicative of like, okay, large scale productions are harder to make happen. And, I see it in the touring industry too. Like, the shows I've gone and seen, there's no meet and greet, there's no hangout, there's no nothing. Like, the artist is done. They're going into a safe, like, as much of an incubative state as they can. If they have a team in place, they can get in and out pretty quick. They're not wholly responsible for loading sometimes, depending on the level of musician you're at. So that's the thing. Like, the culture's different. Like, now it's about preservation of talent if you're at a certain level. But even then, it depends, like, you might not be able to see your favorite artist after a show, but some artists, they don't have that touring infrastructure. So you might be, they might be harangued in the parking lot for 2 hours, and maybe they're nice and patient, but at the end of the day, it's like, if you have to cancel a show, that's money that can't be earned to fund multiple people's jobs. And that's what's scary. It's scary because if you make the decision to do it knowing there's going to be those hurdles, it could cost a lot of extra time and money and headache, and you might not even make any profit or come out on with anything to show for it. And then other times, if you cancel a whole thing, now what do you fill that time with? Very few musicians. I mean, there's a growing percentage, but the infrastructure of music is shifting more towards the what can you make and publish on the back end. You know, more people are making sample packs, more people are getting into sync licensing, more people are making educational, you know, like it's the Dutcher Snedeker piano lesson series, and you know, I do some flashy promo that's just like me. Some people say that in the middle of the forest there is a man who plays way too fast for no reason. This man, his name is Dodger. I'm thinking of Jesus Molina's masterclass series where he's just like, I will teach you how to play the piano. And then he does it in Spanish. And then he does some crazy, like, you know, some lick. So what I'm doing here is I'm chromatically working around stuff in the, I don't know, the D minor or the D Dorian. So if you listen slowly, I don't even know. I couldn't replicate what I was doing. You know, so there's that. There's people, you know, get into the merchant. There's people who get into, like, what can I do remotely? I've seen people who they're at a certain pedigree where they can literally make money just practicing. Like, they go on Twitch and they go like, all right, I'm working on this piece for this concert I'm doing in July with the blah, blah, blah symphony. And you can watch me practice it and tip if you like it. You know, there's people offering virtual private concerts. Like, who'd ever thought that would be in demand? Like, some couple in Atlanta is like, I want to hear the young man play. And then they'd be like, all right, $200. You're like, okay. And then they log on to Zoom and then they watch you play a concert where you've spent hours setting up audio so that it translates as realistically as possible to an audience. And you just play songs that they request from a list. And then that's it. Or people who like have a bank of songs and they do tips. You know, there's people who are making, you know, more of an income than I am, and they never have to leave their house because there's this model happening now that I'm seeing a lot where, like, I think I mentioned it in another podcast, but like Harry Mack, for example, if you still haven't followed him, go follow Harry Mack. He's a amazing improviser. He's a freestyler, hip hop person. But what he did is he made content around going on Omegle, which is kind of like a roulette of like you pop in and it could be like, oh, it's just 3 dudes hanging out and seeing who they want to chat with. Or it's 3 girls who are bored. And then other times it's like, I don't know, people have some type of stylized content that they're making and it pops up. And then other times it's, you know, graphic sex scenes because people are horrible. And they're like, people want to see us having sex. I was like, no one wants to see you clothed. Why do you think people want to see you having sex? But I digress. So Harry Mack, you know, his freestyle formula is give me 3 words or give me 5 words. Like he'll give me a number of words, and then he'll weave this freestyle that includes those words. And the video, you know, it has that little satisfactory moment of like, oh, they said railroad and he used it, and then there's a little ping, a little sound effect, a little check mark. It cuts to the full screen of them reacting. It cuts back to the split, cuts to Harry Mack. Like, it's always making these organized cuts. All of this put up on Instagram, put up on YouTube. These 3 to 5 minute videos, these freestyles. The music portion gets tracked separately so that now he's got a bunch of songs from working with different beat makers, different producers. He's got a bunch of songs, and then those songs all get the virality of the video gets translated to streams, and then the streams earn revenue to go back into the time he's spending tracking all these things. So the models for being, in Patreon, like I started a Patreon. I can pay my internet with that. And I want, eventually I'd like to grow it to where I'm covering my monthly expenses with just Patreon, and not saying like, oh, I wanted to do anything else other than Patreon, but having like when I would think about finances sometimes, or, often, like I think of, okay, my rent is this much. I have a gig this month. If I don't factor in the money I spent on gas or maybe a snack, usually it's gas, that gig will cover my rent. And then anything else is like, all right, this gig can cover these utilities. This gig can cover this. I just had a podcast interview where I am framing it in different ways for expenses. And apparently I'm in a good position, which is cool. But you gotta, I don't know. I thought my Pro Tools was like, I'd heard something. I'm like, did it just stop recording? And I didn't notice. But all that to say, I can't really tie it up in a bow. The next year, I'm not going to have this podcast as a way to kind of communicate on a weekly basis what I'm up to. And I've thought about doing vlog style videos, like a Casey Neistat or something, where it's like kind of artistic, but also a little bit like a snapshot of life with some sort of thematic or a lack of theme sometimes, like, or a Matt Diavello where it's kind of like a documentary style look at a topic mixed with real life. He did all these, like, I did 30 days with cold showers. I did 30 days, no sugar. It's like, I did 90 days with no sugar. So what's up with that? And I did, and I made all of that sugar back up this month. But it's given me more confidence to step in front of things and to be the face of something, even with, it's not like I had huge numbers on this. This was shared for a few people, and a few people more might discover it down the line. And if you're one of those people who it's like 2085 and you're like, Mom, look, I found this podcast about this dude from 2021. Remember when it was just COVID-19 and now we're up to COVID 4,000? It's like, that's not the numbering isn't because of the what number COVID it is where. I know. You don't have to yell at me. Don't yell at me. I don't want you to yell at me for having an opinion on the internet. Opinion on the internet. I have no power or authority, so if I have an opinion, it won't affect any change because I have no audience. Get mad at the Paul brothers, get mad at the Ace family, get mad at Gus Johnson, get mad at all those people who have influence. And even then, they don't have political influence, so get mad at politicians, get mad at those people. Oh, he said a thing that I didn't agree with, and now I'm mad because I don't know how to have a conversation without getting mad. It's like, okay, cool. I'm already over it. I'm over it. So, the podcast will live on in the memories of the people who shared this time. I'll remember it. It's a very different type of thing. I'm used to being the collaborator, so to put myself as the center of attention is always weird. As much as, sometimes I feel like I'm the center of attention when I don't want to be. It's just like, I'm just trying to live my life, I just want to, I want to maybe the not wanting to be in the spotlight is just not wanting to shine a light on all the mess that life brings. But, you know, life's messy, and we all got to learn, and we all got to get through it, and we all got to figure out how to level up and be better. And if it takes 10 years to figure that out, if it takes 40 years to figure that out, you know, you got to figure it out, whatever your version is. Some people, their home run life is like, I was able to buy a house in my hometown. I, you know, have steady work. I have a family, and I'm now reliving and making new traditions with my family. And that's it. That's, you know, beautiful, simplistic life of just being able to cultivate a life that you enjoy living, and that on that basic of a thought. And this podcast is a stepping stone towards that for me. It's making content. It's not just making content in the sense of, you know, feed the algorithm and then only those few who are blessed will be able to enjoy the rewards of the algorithm. We all see it. We all face it every day. I ask the algorithm every morning, please, will you push my content into the ether so that someone out there might connect with it and potentially support my efforts? Oh, algorithm, you are so quick to spread hate, but where is the love, algorithm? Where? Is it buried beneath your cold interior? Your technology-ridden hollow husk of a humanity? But the, you know, there's more down the road. It's not like I'm done making things. Mitten Backstage, it's going to take 2 months off. Life as a Piano is going to take a hiatus as well. I'm taking 2 months off of socials. I'm taking time to work on things behind the scenes. You know, my patrons will get updated, and I'm going to actually have a newsletter that's an email newsletter for people who don't want the physical newsletter. That's a little bit more personable, and it comes with the stickers. But think about this. I'm taking 2 months off of social media. You know what people can do in that time? They can play catch up. I was on the fence of doing that because, you know, you keep the engine going, and people are like, oh, you got to put in like 3 years every week, no. I've seen so many examples of the grind not working, and I've seen so many examples of people who have taken the time and perspective to make a thing better for everyone holistically. And that's what the 2 months is going to do, in theory. The 2 months I'm taking off, I want to focus on continuing to make myself into a person who understands the boom and bust period of being a creative. When I need to take time to step away, even from the public, you know, not posting is not really being in the public, not interacting on socials, not, you know, sharing stuff to my story, you know, not posting about stuff I'm doing. Like, all the stuff that you'll see that are going to come from my socials, it's all going to be pre-done. It's all going to be done beforehand, using Creator Studio, which is a tool that Facebook created to kind of, it doesn't make apps like Hootsuite or Buffer obsolete, because those have more robust features and cover more platforms, but it's Facebook's version of that. It's a back-end analytics tool. It's a content scheduler. It's a, you know, it is what it is. So I'm going to be, you know, preloading a lot of content that isn't really content. It's just like letting people know about shows, letting people know that I'm still alive. You know, I'm going to post something in February probably that's like, hey, still hanging out. This post was drafted in December 2021, and I just wanted to let you know that every Tuesday I'm going to be here or something, like that kind of stuff. Which is going to be interesting too, because I'm not going to look at any responses, because some people might not understand that I can use Creator Studio. And other people might be like, you saved this and then waited 2 months to post it? It's like, no. Nope. We are so far beyond that. we can I used If This Then That for a while. It's an app that all it does is if this, this being something, like for example, if I post a photo on Instagram, it will share it to Twitter. I don't know. It was like supplementing services that now just happen native to the platform. Or, every time I post, one of them was like, every time something happens, I get an email notification, which was helpful for like certain businessy things. But yeah, it's taking that extra step too of like, it's a step of growth, because I've never done that. I've never taken 2 months off of socials deliberately. And even then, like, I might not post for a while, but I would still use it and obsess over it. And not even in the way of like, are people liking my content? It was just trying to be informed, trying to keep up with what everyone's thinking and what everyone's doing, especially in the music industry, understanding trends, not really acting on them a lot of the time, but noticing like weird trends. And TikTok moves 7,000 miles a minute. Like you get hip to a dance trend and it's already 10 years old in TikTok time. There's people who are like still doing certain dance challenges, like, hey, I made a TikTok. And it's like, that dance has long been dead and buried. You're not going to go viral, Aunt Merle? Aunt Merle. That was the first name. Aunt Merle. Yeah, you remember Aunt Merle. She makes a great pecan pie. But, it's going to be a lot to that first week. It's going to be interesting though, because nobody in the history of ever taking time off social media was ever like, I made the horrible mistake. I don't know who I am anymore, and there's so many memes I've missed, and culture has flown by, and where has time gone? And little Billy's off to college. It's always like, that was amazing. I feel like a new person. I feel better. I feel more rested. I feel sane. And some people do that with like, I don't watch the news. It's sensationalist. It's like, yeah, they're the model that we all gobbled up 20 years ago, of like, everything's breaking news. Everything's a breaking story. It's what is it? What's my news? This is shaking the camera. This just in, we have 7,000 stories today, top of the hour, it's not that. It's them stretching a story like into oblivion, because it's a 24-hour news, but it's like 7 stories. It's like, we're going to check back in. Is that dog still in the parade? That dog is still in the parade. It's amazing. A canine. His name is Barktoven. And he's dressed in a hilarious little wig, and he's dressed up like a certain classical pianist. Ludwig. And all the feel-good stories are like, it's like that, like about an animal, or it's about like, little Timmy has melanoma, and this is, while it's treatable, it's very expensive, and it's not a commentary on our healthcare system. It's only focused on the fact that Timmy has made a bunch of money on a lemonade stand and a GoFundMe. Yeah, the community really came together and supported little Timmy's, the treatment that he needs, and we're just so happy that that the family can pay for what they need. That's supposed to be feel good. It's like a dystopian future. It's like, do you know how many stories, like full stop, all you people who don't have to deal with this, I've seen so many of these, so many people. I need a GoFundMe to move from a toxic relationship. I need a GoFundMe to pay for emergency medical services for me or my kid or my pet. I need a GoFundMe for a unexpected car repair. I need to raise money right now. Like, do you know how many of my friends' lives have been crowdfunded? Because this is insane. The whole world is insane right now. Prices keep going up. Payment keeps going stagnant. People are trying to collectivize like with Kellogg or like all these people trying to earn better rights and workers' rights. And all these companies are like, who cares? We'll just replace you. Get out of here. What are you talking about? Human benefits and decency. We're Kellogg's, and we're gonna kill you to make Fruit Loops. Like, it's so insane. Like, I'm not saying that the insane part is like the people should get bootstraps. It's like, no, we shouldn't have to have a world where any sort of bad thing you need to crowdfund. You need to like source from the community. Like, there should just be, I don't know. It's a whole other discussion. It's a whole other thing. And this is why earlier I was like, I have an opinion and it's on the internet. Don't yell at me because you don't like what I'm saying, or that you agree but you don't know how to articulate your point, or you don't agree and you don't know how to argue, or like, just shut up. People are suffering. Like, I don't care that, I wasn't able to buy the new Mercedes this year. We had to sell the G-Wagon. Like, I don't care. That's another thing. I'm at the point where this year was so much hard work that I'm trying to give myself a break too with these socials. And all I see around me is just like people. There's a rhetoric. There's this disdain from the owner class that's just like, why aren't the peons working for me in a dangerous time where I don't have to suffer any of these consequences of being out in public and I can just work from home? And then the people who are working from home right now for different jobs, other people are like, other employers are like, well, okay, work's still getting done, but we still want you to be in a building. It's like, no, what are you crazy? Did you just hear yourself? It's bananas. It's so bananas out there. I bought a hoodie that says exhausted for a reason. I didn't buy it. I bought it partially because it's a joke and it plays into like, oh, Dutcher, he works so hard, blah, 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 blah. I do. But, and I'm exhausted. And that's why you get, exhausted, exasperated Dutcher as part of your last episode. I get one last rant into the void to be like, you know what? This is what we're dealing with. And this is what life is like. And this is what it feels like to be, on the margin. And it sucks. And so many more people are on the margin than people who are even stable or secure. And the people that are stable are like, there's no working class solidarity because everyone thinks that when they make enough money, they're just like Jeff Bezos. And it's like, no, you're not. You're never going to be Jeff Bezos. It doesn't matter that you put in overtime or whatever. Like, you're never going to be Jeff Bezos, ever. You're never going to be Elon Musk, ever. And do people think they can be that? And it's like, you can't. You can never be that unless you have a literal emerald mine like Elon Musk grew up with, and being able to escape being drafted into the armed forces in South Africa by moving in with a relative in Canada. Like, he traveled across the globe to avoid doing problems. Like, and then what? Jeff Bezos got $200,000 from his parents. He's a self-made man. Yeah, if I got enough money that could pay for a house, I would do something with it. You're like, Donald Trump, he took a small loan and he made it. And the dude got an equivalent amount of money to what I make, like in terms of like percentage of wealth grown over time, he hasn't made that much. He spent more money trying to not have to pay people than he's made. Like, I have opinions on the internet, don't yell at me. But, you know, that's another scary part about leaving this in the void of this thing. I want to be able to interact with people. I want to be able to express opinions. I want to be able to be kind of unrestrained creative, and that's the catalyst around this podcast. It started as just, what do I do with these two tools? And it turned into something that I enjoy. You know, I enjoy doing these episodes. It's just me, you know? And then that's not why I enjoy doing it, but it's part of it, you know? It's starting to carve out my own little like, this is me. This is what I like doing. You know, I get doses of that in all my creative projects for sure, but you know, nobody's doing exactly what I'm doing, and nobody's doing exactly what you're doing too. You might think you're a derivative. You might think you're just, oh, I'm a jazz musician. Everything I do is contrafacts. It's like, so that's a starting point. It's like, oh, I'm a videographer. And I just shoot everything with the same lens, and I do the same kind of color editing. Until you don't, go follow Overneath Creative Collective. They do A/B comparisons of how to literally dress up, like literally change the tone of how something looks based on color editing. It's cool. And it reminds you like, oh yeah, you're literally just a couple decisions away from turning your horror scene into a comedy. But I want to impress upon whoever's listening. Try stuff. Do whatever. Don't care about what people think. Don't care about what people are going to say. Put yourself out there. You'll find people who appreciate what you do, and you'll connect with people, and it'll be great. Or if nobody consumes your content, you're still practicing. Every major content creator, aside from those random people who are like scooped up for like K-pop boot camp and and like, you know, the talent to American Idol pipeline. I don't even know if that exists. K-pop is definitely a pipeline, which is fine, I guess. It's a model, I assume. It sounds exhausting, but you know, just try stuff. And it doesn't have to be public. It doesn't have to be, you know, content that you put out there necessarily either. You know, if you want to collect baseball memorabilia, start collecting baseball memorabilia. Learn how to do that. Maybe you have extra money, you don't have any debt. Why not? You know, maybe you want to learn how to cook. You know, I want to be the guy everyone comes to for barbecue. Like, why not? Go do that. Figure out, like, oh, is it the sauce? Is it the rub? Is it the, you know, the cut of meat, the quality of the cut of the meat? Is it the grill? Is it propane? Is it charcoal? Like, do I get a smoker? Like, just do things. Like, that's all I should. This podcast is just about doing things. And it's about improvising through life. And I put that in the description because I didn't know at the time if it would turn into anything thematic other than that. And it's stayed pretty consistent. Like, I've complained about weddings. I've done stuff about shows, about music industry stuff, about my personal life, about collecting, about all sorts, you know, goofy, random, topicless things, you know, stream of consciousness, just rants like I did earlier. It's all fair game. And you should not feel held back trying to do things because life's too short to say no to certain ideas. You might need to say no to free up time, but, you know, I never would have thought literally last year, like November, I would be at episode 50 of this podcast. And I didn't think I would end this podcast. I thought I was going to do this podcast in tandem with Mitten Backstage and Life as a Piano for at least 3 years, because that's the window of time people say, like, hey, if you're going to focus on a podcast, you really got to plan for 3 years of just figuring it out. And it's like, okay, well, now we're at the year mark for all the podcasting, and I figured a lot of stuff out. There's stuff I'm still learning. I just learned about an app that it auto transcribes audio, and I was like, that's huge, because I was so concerned about captions, because there's a whole audience that doesn't, even if they're not deaf, they still want captions, because maybe they're in a noisy environment, or it's, they like reading versus watching. So try stuff, be inventive, do what makes you happy, do things that help you grow as a person, help grow your community, help grow your set of skills. That's all I can really leave you with. And with the final time playing this theme, at least for now, I bid you all farewell. You can still hear me talk about stuff if you go follow Mitten Backstage, Life is a Piano, all my socials. You can keep up with me when I'm off socials on my Patreon, patreon.com/Dutcher Snedeker. My website's going to get updated to reflect stuff coming up. If you're hearing this in real time on the Sunday that it comes out, and you happen to be near Elk Rapids, I'm going to be playing there with Earth Radio. Oh, follow Earth Radio, earthradiomusic.com. Follow Normal Mode. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook. And our album Downlink just came out. Follow Blushing Monk. I want to get stuff rolling with that again. Follow the Mark Lavengood Band. You might catch me playing some shows, or maybe even a tour. We're figuring stuff out. Or I assume Mark is figuring stuff out. Figuring out what his year looks like. But there's a lot of ways you can keep up with me. If at any point during this year-long journey you learned something or you connected with something, feel free to let me know too. Share your favorite episode in the comments. Share maybe something you enjoyed about this and that you'd want to see me do and other stuff. But until then, bittersweet. I hope y'all, just have a good holiday, a good future until such a time where maybe this podcast comes back again. Maybe it's like a bad signal situation. Enough people shine a light in the sky and it's got my hair and I just fire it up again. But I appreciate all of you who checked this out, who gave this a shot, who played this for friends, who played this on the road. I heard so many stories of people who just found some sort of joy in what I was doing, and that's all I can really hope for, is that it reaches people and brightens their lives a little bit. So keep up with me on all those things, and we'll see you somewhere in the future in other things. But for now, farewell. This is Dutcher Snedeker Podcast, signing off. See you out there.